Vahag Nikolian. I'm one of the assistant professors here in the Department of Surgery at OHSU. My team, which is the Surgical Telehealth and Analytics Research Laboratory here at OHSU, is made up of some stellar medical students, including Stephanie McDonald and Ashraf Saman, who are leading the charge in trying to help turn medical education and training, technical skills training in particular, to the 21st century. What we're interested in doing for this project is looking at the use of augmented reality to allow for technical skills training regardless of where someone is located geographically. The current standard by which students are trained oftentimes requires students to come to a common destination, meet with their trainers, and then work amongst groups to learn how to become eventual surgeons. Our goal is that we can use augmented reality-based platforms and develop a platform to subsequently allow for training to happen from the comfort of home, so that so long as you have a video connection, an internet connection, you can get the same feedback on your technical skills and acquire those from the comfort of home.
Can you tell me, how did you get into InventOR?
As a junior faculty who's really interested in trying to sort of lead the charge in the 21st century, one of my mottos is, let's try to figure out how to take care of age-old problems with new age approaches. And my students are kind of enthusiastic in the same way. They're very interested in using technology to further education. And so when we looked and saw that there was an opportunity to get involved in InventOR, it seemed like, especially as we read about it, we understood the goals of the teams and the funding agency. We felt like it really fit hand in hand with what our goals and desires were, not only for now, but for the future. And being involved and interacting with our community, our academic setting, as well as beyond, was something we were very excited about.
I come from a medical family. I know that the traditional model of medical school that you were describing in your first answer has worked for a very long time. Why is it so important to switch to new technology right now?
Because the potential hasn't necessarily been tapped. Just because things have worked doesn't mean that they're necessarily optimized. And there's plenty of times where we've done things the traditional way, only because we've been afraid to ask if it can be done any other way. And for technical skills training, our vision is that this will sort of be the first step towards the future. Now, we're starting with medical students learning how to do technical skills on inanimate objects. But our eventual goal is truly to innovate to the point where we'll be able to do telesurgery. And what do I mean by telesurgery? I mean that we will remotely be able to operate on patients irrespective of geographic distances between the surgeon and the patient. I'm a robotic surgeon. I do a lot of robotic operations. People wonder what a robotic operation entails. They think maybe there's a button I press, a simple button, and the operation happens. That's not what it is. What it is that tools are presented inside a patient, and I control the tools with a fiber optic cable connecting me to the patient from a console. Now, imagine instead of a fiber optic cable, it's a 5G connection. And what we're looking at is the first iteration of this kind of an approach, connecting people performing technical skills or technical procedures across distances. Our eventual goal is telesurgery, but I think iterative improvements in this will entail developing a platform so trainees in residency, for instance, can capture the educational benefits of maybe a world-renowned surgeon at another site. Eventually, maybe having proctoring of surgeons who are already in practice by experts in the field on the other side of the world, checking into their operating room. And eventually, of course, telesurgery. This is a longer term goal, but I think a worthwhile goal to increase access to care and really take surgery to the next level.
I'm interested in a couple of things. The access to care, I would like to circle back on. But first, I just kind of want to talk about the context of why this idea right now. What role, if any, did the COVID pandemic have in your motivation to work on this?
Great question. And truth be told, I've been doing virtual care telemedicine since 2016. Actually started the first general surgery formalized e-clinic, as we called it, the e-surgery surgery e-clinic at the University of Michigan 2016. At that time, doing virtual care was not in vogue. It wasn't common, but what it was a potential opportunity. And through the last few years, I've really worked on demonstrating that it's a safe and effective approach to patient care. That said, as we've talked about, surgery is oftentimes filled with hierarchy and tradition and dogma. And so for many of my colleagues, when I introduced the concept, they thought it was interesting, but they were afraid to try it on their own. The COVID pandemic, though, changed everything. Although it's been a very challenging and trying time in medicine, it's also led to innovation. It's given many of us a forced opportunity to see the potential of telecare and virtual care and interactions with patients and people remotely, and demonstrating that we can, in fact, accomplish a lot, even if we're not sitting in the same room. So from my perspective, the role that COVID has played in this project and projects of this nature are not necessarily giving me the motivation to pursue it. That motivation's been there for a long time. But I think it's given people a better sense that it's possible and maybe more enthusiasm to support projects of this nature.
Thanks for your answer. Let's return back to the access to care. If everything goes to plan and you see your intention fulfilled, who stands to benefit most? Where are they? What do they suffer from? And how will your innovation help them?
Great question. And this is my dream. And you got to aim high to eventually, achieve it. And I say this to many people, that my dream is that we will be able to provide high-level surgical care anywhere, anytime in the world. And I genuinely mean that. When you look around and you ask people about, things that they do in medicine to serve underserved communities, and I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking the world. You oftentimes hear stories, and they're very unbelievable stories from surgeons and doctors and team members who will fly to various destinations, whether you're talking about a developing nation, a place that's been sort of hurt by a natural disaster. They'll fly a team, they'll take medical supplies, they'll perform operations, and then they'll fly back. I liken that to buying or giving someone a fish. Our goal is not necessarily to buy or give fish to people. Our goal is to teach people how to fish so they can have sustainability in what they do. Building hospitals, large hospitals like OHSU, are not attainable for most developing nations and most underserved communities. However, these surgical centers are much more readily attainable. If you were to institute a telesurgery program or a telemedicine program and have all those volunteers, rather than coming for 1 week at a time, have each of them come for 1 week at a time virtually, you've increased access to care multifold. I envision a scenario where we'll be able to have 52 weeks a year covered in various settings by people, doctors, human beings who want to help their fellow human being. And I think that we can do a lot with telesurgery, telemedicine, virtual care, and augmented reality. It's not only to provide the service, but also teach them how to do it and plug into their operating rooms, plug into their clinics, give them a hand, give them assurance, give them support as they learn how to fish and take care of their own communities.
Well, it certainly sounds like the potential is enormous. And you mentioned a couple of obstacles to at least why it's not necessarily gainful to build big hospitals. But I'm wondering, what do you foresee as the biggest challenges or obstacles moving forward?
Multifold. So there's a few obstacles that we must overcome. First and foremost, there's clearly security barriers that we have to be mindful of. Just as it's easy to hack into someone's computer, you can imagine a scenario where you're performing a telesurgery and the connection is broken down or hacked. That would be an extremely dangerous situation. You have to make sure that licensure is present so that when you're practicing medicine or caring for someone, that it's appropriately done. You have to make sure that you demonstrate safety and efficacy. And you have to make sure that the efficacy serves the community that you're aiming to serve. Not just doing something because you can do it, but doing it because it's needed. So all of these things are going to be barriers that must be overcome. But feasibility is the element that we're focused on. And that's what we're focused on with this project, is demonstrating that at its roots, the concept of teaching someone remotely is a possibility. We're starting somewhere that we don't have to worry about security breaches. We're working with students, we're working with trainers like myself, we're working with inanimate objects. We're only demonstrating now that using augmented-based reality, I can guide someone, a learner, a novice, to do something that they couldn't do before or that they were having trouble with and they may get better at. And then through iterative improvements, we'll find a way to take it to the next level, take it to the bedside, take it to the operating room, and continue to make things better.
Do you think that the online experience translates one-to-one with what you might learn in a surgical setting in a medical teaching hospital?
I think it does. And in many cases, it's actually better. I do teaching remotely. I do a lot of remote education. I work with surgeons around the country, sometimes retrospectively, not in real time, but retrospectively reviewing video and providing feedback as to how they performed a certain operation or what techniques they used. And oftentimes, what we find is that the feedback can be very good. The interactions can be consistently strong, and that the connection that we make, the thought processes that we share are very important and can be just as strong. There's a lot of emerging data now coming out regarding the role of the virtual conference and the efficacy. It gives people, I think, more access. Why? Because you're no longer limited by time or space or schedule. You can more easily check in, more easily check out. And you may be able to, because of the mechanism and maybe less pressure in a large academic conference room, feel more confident in providing your insights, even though you're a junior trainee or a novice, relative to some of the more prominent names that may sit in a room.
Yeah, it's certainly food for thought. I'd like to pivot a little bit to talk about the experience of the competition. We're pretty late now. The finals are this week. But I'd like you to sort of time travel back to the beginning of your entry into the competition. I wanted to ask you what you hope to get out of your experience at Invent Oregon and how that has changed now that we're going into the finals.
So first and foremost, it's not about me, it's about the team. And it's about watching my medical students, Stephanie and Ashraf, really take a concept that they were passionate about and interact with their community, work with other team members, and turn this idea into a reality. I'm really proud to say that they've worked diligently on conceptualizing this framework that they're building upon. I'm really proud to see that they're innovating. And I tell them all the time, the contribution that they're making to their medical school community is critical. It's something that's going to be a legacy piece for them, something that one day, hopefully, their colleagues will look back and be like, wow, this is such a cool way of learning how to become a surgeon, learning technical skills.
Can you talk a little bit about the innovations that they have brought to the table and maybe how Star Lab has changed over the course of Invent Oregon?
Some of the nice things that this project has forced us to do is simplify our goal. Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And it's allowed us to do that. It's made us ask the question, what is essential for demonstration of feasibility, and what is goals and aspirational things that we want to aim towards. And for our first model, for our first project here, we're going to be focused on feasibility. We're going to be focused on demonstrating that, in fact, you can learn remotely from another person in real time.
Last question for you. What is the most important thing that you want the judges to understand about Star Lab?
The potential. This is just the first step along what I believe will be the continuum towards telesurgery. It's the potential and the innovation and the ability to impact people across the world, irrespective of their geographic location.